Greetings, Warriors! Last night, I got to go to the world premiere red carpet event in King of Prussia for this movie, for NOVOCAINE. Okay? Like I said last night, very good movie. It's an action comedy, right? Jack Quaid, you can't go wrong with him, right? And he, right, I mean, first of all, I'm glad he got a movie, pardon me, where he can be the leading man, because he's done a lot of, like, secondary parts and things, you know what I mean? Like, he's in Lower Decks, right? He's at Boimler, right? And then when they did the live one, on the Star Trek one with Pike, Brave New World, right? He was perfect, right? He was. And it's just funny how much they made his character on Lower Decks look exactly like him, which was cool. So when they brought him live, you know what I mean? It was kind of a neat. That was one of the better episodes they had last year. Now, he's been in a ton of other shows, right? Like he was in, I believe it was Buffy the Vampire Slayer, and what was that? Oh my God, there was Scream, So he's been in a bunch of other things other than the Star Trek. But okay, in this movie, he's really good, and he's actually getting the chance to play a leading man. Now, what's the gist of the movie, right? So basically the movie is about, Jack Quaid, Dennis Quaid's son, by the way. I thought it was Randy Quaid's son. Thank God it's Dennis Quaid. But anyway, right, he can't feel any pain, right? He has this specific nerve disorder where he can't feel pain, right? So you think, in your head, you're like, what's the big deal about that? That's pretty cool, right? And then it comes out more and more about, like, how he was secluded a lot as a kid because, he would get hurt and not realize it, and then the school didn't want him around. And then when the other kids found out that he couldn't feel pain, they would beat the crap out of him, right? And then he ended up being homeschooled, So he has very low social, he's socially awkward, let's put it that way, okay? So, he's the assistant bank manager working at a bank, right? And they have this really cute bank teller, right? And she was really cute. She was played by Amber Mid-Thunder. Yeah, that's her name, Mid-Thunder. I don't make it up, right? So, and she's pretty cute, right? And he's trying to, like, get to know her, right? And then he chickens out, and then she asks him out for a cup of coffee. So they go out for a cup of coffee, right? And then she orders some pie. Now, this is where you start to feel sorry for him, right? Because he says he can't eat the pie, right? After he let her know that he has this condition, he can't eat the pie because he can't eat anything because they're afraid that he would bite his tongue off and he wouldn't know, right? Now you're starting to feel sad for him, right? And then he tells you about him growing up, getting beat up, he was homeschooled, blah, 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 right? So they get together, right, and she kind of digs him. Then she says, why don't you meet me at this thing tonight, right? So they go, right? And meanwhile, his buddy, right, is Ned, right? Ray Nicholson. He's Ned from Spider-Man, right? And he had kind of a Jacob Batalon. Ray Nicholson was the bad guy, right? But I felt bad for his part because he really didn't have a part. I mean, he was like the sidekick, the man in the chair kind of thing. Never met, the Jack the character, right? Or Nathan Kane, right? Never met him. They only met each other because they play video games together, right? They're both big time gamers, right? But when it came down that that Nathan needed to get a hold of somebody. He had no friends to call. So he calls this guy, right? And he's like, yeah, we only know each other from the video. And he's like, you're the only friend I got. Can you come help me, right? So he comes, he helps him, right? And then it just gets crazy because they break into the bank, right? So these three guys break into the bank, right? And they kill the bank manager, right? Well, now he's the assistant bank manager, and he's like, you know, he's trying to hold his own, right? With jibbing and jabbing with him, right? Trying to talk him down. Then they go okay, and they grab the girl, the bank teller, and they're going to kill her, right? Unless he gives them the the combination to the safe, right? So he gives them the combination to the safe. Then they take her with them as a hostage, right? So and he got pounded at the bank, right? So he gets up and he's like, you know what? I'm going to go and I'm going to follow these guys, right? He runs outside, right? He runs outside. What does he see? He sees two cops lying there dead because when the bank robbers left, they shot these two cops. Pardon me. So what do? They had taken off, right, in their cars, and two cars, right? And then Nathan decides, you know what, I'm going to steal this cop car, and I'm going to follow him, right? So he's following in the cop car, and then they split up, so he follows the one guy, right? Now, remember, they kidnapped, right, the chick he's hot for, right? So they kidnapped her, right? So he's following one car, but the one car he follows, right, isn't the car that she's in. It's a car that the money was in, which was even better, right? So then he's trying to find out who this person is, right? Right? He ends up finding out who the guy is, goes to his house, right? They ended up beating the crap out of each other, right? And then, like, he kills them. And then, spoilers, because the embargo's over, right? And then, the guy's brother, who was one of the heavies, comes over, and then they beat the crap out. And he can't remember. He can't feel anything, right? So they're fighting. He's getting burned. I mean, there's one scene, like, his gun got dropped into a vat of hot oil. He reaches into the vat of hot oil, pulls the gun out, and takes a couple pops, right? Then there's another scene, right? Great scene, that they're fighting in the kitchen, same kitchen, right? And he's looking for a weapon. He literally grabs a cast iron grill that's been sitting on the stove, right, for a good bit, because when they came into the kitchen, the guy that was the cook was just preparing that, and he had taken it out. So he takes it and he throws the gunk in the guy's face, right? Then he whaps him in the head with the pan, right? Then he looks at his hand's like all burnt. Then right after that, that's when he goes in and he pulls out the gun from the deep fryer. Now his hands are totally, like, disgustingly burnt. Right? So he kills those two guys, and he finds out where his girlfriend's at. Well, his girlfriend was in on it. Hey, and it turns out that his girlfriend is actually the sister of the guy who's running the bank heist, right? So he's all pissed off because, and Nathan killed his two buddies, right? And he's like, all right. So he's like going to beat the shit out of this brother guy. And it goes back and forth, right? And then it gets to the end, and, like, there's broken glass, and he just pounds his fist. And, like, you're looking at behind me now, fist into the glass, so they get stuck on his tape, and then he pummels the guy, right? And, it was crazy. It was, okay, so if you like fights, this was a movie to go see, right? And you really feel bad for the guy at the end, right? Because he got the shit kicked out of him. He's got broken bones, right? He's got third and fourth degree burns all over his arms and his hands, right? And he did this for this girl. Then he finds out that she was in on the heist, and she's a traitor. I hate women like that. Anyway, so what happens, right? So, right, but he still wants to stick up for her because he's still in love with her, right? I mean, he's got a case. He's got a case of the hotties, and she's it, right? So what do they? So what happens, right? So the cops come, right? His buddy from the video game, Ned from Spider-Man, right? He brings the cops over. Cops come over, right? They arrest everybody, right? And then they got to arrest her, right? Because, well, she was in on it, even though she got off, for, I think she only had to do like 9 months in prison because she was just, a patsy in the whole thing, right? So, right, she goes to jail. Meanwhile, right, they take him to the hospital, and then it goes, like, remember on SpongeBob, 2 weeks later? 2 weeks later, right, Ned is at the hospital, and he wakes up, right? And he's in all kinds of casts, right? His whole body's in a cast, his face is all, right? And his hands are, like, has like, the gunk on it that they do with burn victims, right? Skin grafts all over his hands, right? And he looks disgusting, And then, like, they tell him, well, you will eventually get better, right? It's going to take a lot of hard work. You got to do a lot of therapy, blah, blah, blah. Same shit to do every movie, right? And then at the end, what happens, right? You see him sitting talking to the girl, right? And they're sitting chit-chatting. So you're thinking she got out of jail, right? Well, it turns out that he's in jail, talking to her in jail, and he bought her a little birthday cake for her birthday. Ain't that sweet? And she would have been fine if he died half an hour ago. So, the moral of this movie is, don't fall in love with a woman. Ever. Second moral of the movie is, if you can't feel pain, don't do stuff that would hurt you. Right? And the third thing I got from this movie is, Jack Quaid's a badass. And I'm hoping to see him in some movies in the future. And I can actually see him as a leading man in like a rom-com. Right? Not on Hallmark. Right? But he would actually do a good Christmas movie. You know what I mean? He could be the guy in town. Alright. Christmas is over. Even though they're still running those Christmas movies on Hallmark. And there's people like Helga who will continue to watch them. So, what do you think I think of this movie? Well, last night, when I did the post, I gave it a 7.5, right? Because I liked it a lot, but I wasn't, like, thrilled with it, okay? And then, like, I thought about it overnight, right? And I was, like, kind of thinking, like, more of the intricacies of this movie, right? And it turns out, when you think about it, other than the action, because the action was stupendous, right? The plot is a plot that's been in a million other movies, right? Guy defends girl and all that, right? But, like, they want to try to make a franchise out of this. I don't think it's going to work. I don't think it's going to work. They're not going to make a franchise out of it. So what's going to happen, right? I think that they're going to make a second movie, right, with this. And meanwhile, he probably is training, right, to be able to fight and all that without getting hurt, but taking advantage of him not being able to feel pain. All right. That's where I see it, right? So I give it 7.5, maybe 7 3/4 skulls of my enemy, right? And there we are. So, do I go see it? If you really like that, you really like action comedies, you'll love this, right? Go see it, right? It's a movie you could take your chick to go see it. You know what I mean? Because there's that romantic thing involved in it, right? But, I'd rather you go see Captain America, the Captain America Brave New World, right? Because when this movie hits video, I mean, it's actually going to explode, I'm telling you. Like the Fall Guy. When the Fall Guy was at the movies, it died. And I thought it was fantastic. But when this movie goes to video, it will take off. Now, I don't see a lot of people going to see it at the movies. That's my humble opinion. All right. So it's the Mad Darbarian. Pardon me. The Mad Darbarian for Mad Darbarian Post-Apocalyptic Theater Movie Reviews. I'm out. See ya. Yeah.